So I'll say good morning. My name is Adele Imrie, and I'm the Chair of Toronto Community Housing Board of Directors. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting, which is taking place in Committee Room 1 of City Hall using our WebEx platform. We are also live streaming today on YouTube. I will begin with the acknowledgement that the land we are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with Mississaugas of the Credit. We also acknowledge all treaty people, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. I'd also like to highlight that June is Pride Month, and here in Toronto, the theme for 2025 Toronto Pride is All In. It has been a rallying cry for connection and a celebration of our shared strength in the face of today's challenges. I'm proud of this organization because Sean and other leaders across the company have been vocal about maintaining and strengthening TCHC's commitment to diversity and the power it brings to us. TCHC's own Pride Network planned a very successful social event on June the 5th, and they will be hosting a Toronto Pride Parade Watch Party on June 29th. I'm grateful to everyone at TCHC who has shown their solidarity this month, particularly the Pride Network Steering Committee who planned these events. Sarah Zayri-Hoon, La De Niro De Silva, Kamal Singh, and Mark Havrick. So now I would like to introduce new members of our leadership team, and we're very pleased to have two new faces from our executive leadership team here today. Noah Slater, our new Vice President of Facilities Management, joined on May 22nd, 2025. Noah is a licensed architect with over 20 years of experience in the field, and for the last decade has been focused on building, renewing and improving public housing assets in various City of Toronto roles. Some of you are familiar with Noah from his time at TCHC as a Senior Director of Capital Planning, Design and Engagement, a role he held from July 2016 to July 2022. We're very pleased to welcome Noah back, and we know his experience will be invaluable to TCHC. So welcome back, Noah. Alongside Noah, we also have the new Chief Development Officer for TCHC, Eve Chung, who started on June the 2nd. Eve has held senior leadership roles at Tricon, Empire Communities, Mattamy, and Tridel, and has been involved in many rental, condo, and mixed-use communities, including our own Alexander Park project. Eve has a wealth of experience in public-private partnerships, finding creative ways to secure government funding and kickstarting new housing projects, which is vitally important to TCHC. Eve and Noah, I think it's a perfect time for you to join the ELT, and on behalf of the board, I want to welcome you, and we wish you all the best, and you certainly have our support, and no pressure, but the expectations are really high. So welcome. We will move to the agenda. We do have deputations today, and deputants have the option to depute in person or virtually and provide written deputations, and the written deputations are distributed to the board before the meeting. So I will ask if there are any additions to the agenda today, and we actually do have one. And I have a note here, and Dara, I've lost my paper. Here it is. So we have to amend our motion as it relates to our AGM, and we will put that between items 10 and 11. And so I will ask if someone could move the addition of that one item. Benita, John seconder, all in favor? So we'll call that 10A. And can I ask if there are any conflicts of interest as it relates to any items on the agenda today? Okay, and I will note that we are holding items, we'll hold 10A. Items number 13, 15, 16, 17, 19, and 20, as we have deputations. We will be holding item the item that relates to the human rights. No, that's the in camera. Sorry, my mistake. So are there any other items that board members would like to hold? John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to hold item number 9.
Number 9.
You said 13 was held, correct?
13 has been held for deputation.
Thank you.
Are there any other items that members would like held? Okay, I'm just going to pick number 10. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda, excluding items 9, 10, 10A, 13, 15, 16, 17, 19, and 20? Can I add 14 to that list? That was mine, and I missed it. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Brian, thank you. A seconder? Benita, all in favor? Okay, so we will move to item number 9. So Nadia, do you have anything that you would like to speak to first, or do you just want questions?
Through the chair, it's entirely up to you. I can give some opening remarks if you'd like.
If there's anything you'd like to highlight for us?
Sure. So item number 9, the report addresses the committee's and the board's request that management bring back information outlining the financial controls in place to facilitate the implementation of the previously approved Lyft program. TCHC tenants provided extensive and clear feedback to staff about the need to enable more tenant control and decision-making with the Lyft program that had previously been seen in the predecessor program. Staff worked hard to honor this feedback, while at the same time meeting the needs for appropriate financial controls. There's been extensive collaboration between operations, finance, procurement, and legal services to finalize the policy for the TSC and board approval. The policy is accompanied by procedures for information, which lay out the robust and extensive financial controls in place to ensure that Lyft funds are distributed appropriately and accounted for. So I'm joined by my colleague Pablo Vivanco and Raj Atma from Finance, who are here to answer any questions you may have.
John.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Nadia. So the per housing unit or per housing development, it's limited to $1,000 per year per building or townhouse complex or whatever. Is that?
So through the chair, it's minimally $1,000. So it is by bedroom size. So if you're a smaller community, you might not have had as high as 1,000. So we capped the low end as $1,000, but the larger communities obviously will get more money depending on the number of bedrooms they have allocated in their community.
So they can go, because it says here the cap is $1,000.
Yeah.
So at the bottom end of Lyft, it's $1,000. It goes up to, Pablo, if you can speak to the exact number, and then tenants could then apply for the grants within their allocated amount. So Pablo, can you speak to that?
Yes, good morning, through the chair. So as Nadia said, the minimum amount that will be available through Lyft is 1,000 per community. That the other communities will get $1,275 per bedroom. So there are certain communities that will get up to, I think the largest will be about 21,000. But the minimum amount in alignment with the current tenant funding model, which is the Tenant Action Fund, will be 1,000. So we wanted to align it with that. So it won't be less than 1,000, but it will be significantly more for some communities.
Okay, so the largest will be 21,000. And are these, I got the sense that these funds are not intended for capital purchases. More so local events, is that right?
So through the chair, it is not at all intended for capital purchases, so we would continue to work with our local teams and our facilities management teams to do any capital improvements. The program is focused on events and smaller activities based on tenant need and involvement.
So if they wanted to buy a barbecue or something, that is not included, that will be excluded, will it?
So through the chair, there are materials and resources that they're able to purchase to advance the work. We wouldn't consider that capital. So items like garden hoses, garden tools and whatnot would be included as part of Lyft.
They would be included?
Yes.
Okay. And it says there's no, so if you've got a property and they're allocated only $1,000 or $1,200, they can't carry it forward. So if they don't use it, they lose it. And my concern is it's kind of like with, federal and provincial government funding, right? Like if they don't use the budget, they wind up spending all of the budget, whether they need to or not. So so if you've got a building, they've got $21,000 or another one has $10,000. How do we sort of put a control on that so that it's not all just spent in the 11th month or the 12th month, just to make sure it's spent?
So through the chair, we are actively engaging communities through our community circle model. So we have started the conversations in many of our communities. The intention is to have those conversations at the beginning of the year and to map out funding over the course of the year. So it's not that you would have the meeting in January and everything's planned in November and December. The idea is that we would map out your activities for the year, and then the local staff would actually work with the tenant group to implement it throughout the year. So right now, we've just started our community circles. We wanted official approval for the Lyft program before we start implementing it. But that's the intention, for it to be a full year-round implementation strategy.
That's good. And so that it's not overly bureaucratic, because I can see this being, something that's challenging to monitor with so many different communities and so many, hundreds of different budgets. At what point is at what local point is the decision making made? Is it made by tenant service coordinators, or does it go up to the general manager level? Who has the final sign off on how the money is spent?
So through the chair, the idea is that the local priorities are set with the community service coordinator and the tenants. They would then have the discussion around where they wanted to prioritize the resources. So you might want to invest more in a summer initiative versus a fall initiative. That discussion is had with the tenants. We then take it back to the local management team and advise the centralized team so that we can action it. So the intention is to give as much decision-making to the tenants themselves. We wouldn't be deciding whether you want to invest in this versus this, but our hope is that we would advise tenants so they're aware and utilizing the funds to the optimal outcomes. So it's the tenants.
If we want to have a fall fair, and we want to have a bouncy castle, and we want to have, a musician come in, and some food and so on. So, who makes, at what point is the decision made that this is go or no go, and who signs off on it? Does it go to the general manager, or is it decided somewhere before it has to reach the general manager?
The chair, once the priorities are set, a budget will be allocated to the respective priorities, and based on that budget is how you will plan your activity locally. So it isn't so much that we would decide whether you're doing that event versus this event, but given your allocation, we would say, okay, in order to do something of that magnitude, it might cost you closer to 2,000. So did you want to remove that from A or B? So we wouldn't be saying, don't do X.
No, but who has the final authority of sign off on any given initiative?
Pablo, can you speak to that, please?
Yes, through the chair. So we have outlined the eligible expenses. So as explained, the tenant circles, the tenants come together and decide their priorities and how they want to action their priorities insofar as an activity, fall fair, for example, in this case. Then they will work with the community service coordinators and the tenant participation coordinators to define the specific allocations, the expenses, which will be signed off first by the local staff and then by the CSS managers once it's been determined that those expenses are eligible.
And the CSS manager is community
Community
service?
Safety and Support Manager in the respective regions.
Okay. So it's, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
I had a couple of questions. So is this, I don't know what a tenant circle is.
The chair, in our new tenant engagement model, we have a local community gathering. So it would be a group of tenants from that local community, and they would meet to decide what the community or building priorities are. So it could be a group of 5 tenants, it could be a group of 15 tenants, different sizes depending on the community.
Elected people?
They're not
Or they just
elected,
show
so
up?
they self-govern and they manage sort of bringing themselves together. There is an elected process to the system that will decide who the representation at the tenant councils are. So there will be an elected process happening this fall, but it isn't about the tenant circles. It's about the actual layer of some governance and input in decision-making that would be happening in the fall of this year. The tenant circles are just local.
Okay, and this tenant circle, they just decide what they want to do, simple majority, super majority, or? I'm just anticipating that there can be disputes within it's like a condo board, right?
So through the chair, the goal is always consensus building. And so we do our best to make sure when we're having those conversations, there are mediated conversations and we lead to the optimal outcome, as I mentioned. Oftentimes there are more interests and needs than there are funds. And so we talk with the tenants in terms of prioritizing. We've deployed democracies in the past where we have tenants vote on their preferred ideas. So in larger tenant circles, we might use that model, but typically it's a discussion with the tenants in the group.
Okay, and you find that it goes smoothly, there isn't?
Through the
That's
chair,
trying to organize everything and,
there are times where it is difficult and challenging, and so we try to get to all of the ideas, and part of the conversation is maybe we don't get to it this year, we can get to it next year, so we try to make sure that we address as many priorities as requested.
and can you explain the trustees? I'm not clear how they are, like, why you're retaining a trustee to. So, sorry, the trustees, the not-for-profits, why, I don't understand why in what circumstance would we need to providing them with funds to manage for a community?
Through the chair, there might be instances where a tenant group is engaged and working with a community partner, and they're able to advance the work of that idea or initiative maybe quicker than our procurement process allows, our internal systems. So there are cases where we would work with a third party to ensure that funds are getting distributed as quickly as possible and working with the tenant group to provide capacity building and support. So it isn't something that we would deploy in all circumstances, but in certain circumstances like the fall fair, for example, we might have a local agency partner that's working closely with the tenant group and able to support and mobilize that initiative, and we would work with that third party.
Okay, I was just, it seemed like you're giving the money over to them. Anyway, I was a bit concerned about that because we did have trouble in the past. Can you just oh, Lily, sorry?
Yeah, I was going to add to Nadia's comment. This is something we will be working closely with the City of Toronto because that's one of the mechanisms SDFA has been utilizing in engaging some of the community partners. It's a pretty mature, established process. For us, it's more about adopting. So we also outline very detailed procedure in the policy and in the process document, in terms of entering into the agreement and have all the checks and balances and why not, to be able to run that program successfully.
Okay, I would just ask you to look back at what happened in the past, so that we don't make the same, we don't have the same problems that we did before, is what I'm asking. So if you could look, can you just remind me what the budget allocation was for this? I'm just trying to get a sense of the dollars here.
So through the chair, it's just over $1 million.
Okay. And can I just ask, we have a report later on about social procurement. How does that fit into this? And I'm not sure where people are sourcing these items, which was also an issue last time. So
through the chair, were there instances where we could employ a tenant-based group, such as a caterer or another sort of service deliverer? I think we would focus on doing that. We heard loud and clear from TAC and other tenants. They wanted to ensure that tenants were also involved in the process. We typically find with a lot of the applications, they're more for items for the tenants to lead work as opposed to services. But we could certainly look to try and map in using tenant-based businesses or social enterprises wherever we can. But it's typically ordering items to do something.
And I'm still not clear, like before we used to have a catalog and they flipped through the catalog. Like who is sourcing these items or these caterers, or like how is that working?
So through the chair, Raj, Pablo, can you comment on that, please?
Yes, through the chair. So we will continue doing most of the purchasing through our vendoring processes. However, in the procedures as have been presented, we've also included guidelines in order to be able to have controlled purchasing cards to allow some more flexibility for staff to do purchasing outside of the approved vendors, to allow, again, for greater flexibility. However, we are working with our colleagues in finance to expand our vendor rosters to be able to have some more choice and variety for tenants to be able to have their community needs met at the same time as still having controlled processes.
Okay. I do think social procurement is important. And I'll go back to John's comment about, and there was a comment in the report talking about, oh, we don't worry because we think the money will all be spent. To me, it's about how it's spent, not that it's spent. And again, in the past, we had things that were purchased that sat in boxes. Nobody used them. They were just there. And I don't think Karim is here, but Lily, I'm gonna ask you, like, this is a change from what we had when we had participatory budgeting, that we're not gonna end up with the same issues that we had there. You're confident that this process is going to work?
Thanks, Chair, for that question. So I'm confident because the team have gone through all the recommendations from the external investigating report. We actually gone through line by line and also established the offsetting or the compensating control mechanism to close those recommendations, and that all those recommendations are also built into our process as well as the SOPs. That's already been communicated to the team across the organization. It's going to be a collaborative effort between ops, between procurement as well as the finance team. It's an end-to-end process, from the budget approval at different levels, from the tenant request intake to ordering to receipts to monitoring the invoices as well as making the payment. its full cycle.
Okay, Brian? Oh, so sorry, Brian had his hand up for a while.
Okay, I just want to congratulate staff because I think beyond the activities for tenants, I think one of the major, opportunities that this allows is to build tenant engagement. And I think that will have a lot of impact on the issues of security because the more we can engage tenants in their own communities, and this is one vehicle to do that, I think it will also address some of the security issues because the more we can have people involved in their own communities, the better I think the communities will operate and hopefully address some of the security issues that and it's a much, when we look at the amount of money we can spend on our community security issues, this is pretty much a drop in the bucket compared to what we spend on those other issues. So I think it's a really, really important area. And sure, there's a lot of flexibility and there's a certain risk in these because we have a lot of units scattered across the whole thing. But the materiality of the amounts of money is very small in my view compared to other areas in the organization. So anything we can do to encourage tenants to be engaged in their own communities and come up with creative ways to solve whatever the challenges are that they face is a really important area for the organization. And I think we'll do a lot more in the safety and security aspect than we can ever do by increasing policing.
And I agree with that, and that's why it's not about buying stuff that just sits in a box.
No.
I'm back with John in the bouncy castle, because that's community building. And I think that that's so important, and you get to know your neighbors, and like, I think that that's more important than just spending money on stuff that sits in a box. Marcel?
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. One, I agree with Brian. The work that you've put into this is really good, and I'm kind of excited for the communities. I just have three things. One, the new vendor list, will that be going out to the tenants so that they can, kind of be able to view what they can access? Two, as far as like vendors, would there be like farmers, like if somebody wanted to purchase, say, 6 or 7 bags of corn for a corn roast, say, would that be accessible? And the other thing is, what if the community wanted to create a food bank? Would they be able to access that funds to create something like that for to create just more assistance for the community? Thank you.
Good idea, Marcel. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Yes, through the chair, yes. So we will be trying to be as transparent as possible with communities around what the vendoring options are. And also something that we tried to convey in the report is that we'll be working to evolve this process. So this is our launching point. This is the starting point for getting this tenant funding model up and running. However, we will be looking to evolve this along with tenants. So where it is that we have those opportunities to build in, what's developing from my colleagues in social procurement, as well as expanding where we are able to source things for the fall fair or for this corn roast. We'll be looking to do that. That's part of the ethos of the Lyft.
I would recommend you engage with Marcel.
If I could just add to the chair, we heard loud and clear in some of our consultation discussions with tenants that the past approach of just sort of having a catalog of here's the 100 things that you can buy was inadequate, right? So yes, we'll certainly share what we have and what we can in terms of what's available from a vendoring perspective, but it's no longer expected that that's going to be a constraint, right? So it won't be here's the catalog, you can only buy these 100 things. It will be let's work with the community around what you need, and not as an item to sit in a box, but what you need in order to enable the kinds of events and activities that are going to bring the community together, which is entirely the intention of this. And then if it's not available through our standard vendoring processes, then the onus is back on us to go figure out how to source something like that, right? So we don't want it to be a stop sign. We want it to be a starting point, right, in terms of using our vendors, right?
And there's some great ideas. Sorry, Marcel, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, just one more thing. This is great work. Like, honestly, give yourselves a good, like pump your tires. This is good work. Thank you.
Thank you. John, and then Ziva. Oh, no, sorry.
So Nadia, to you through the chair, how does does this not overlap with the tenant action funds now?
So through the chair, the tenant action funds will be phased out. The reason why we continued it this year is because there was a request to come back on Lyft, but the intention is for us to just be doing Lyft moving forward in 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Ziva? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I would just say that this is great work for sure. I know that you all did a great job with listening to community and making some adjustments to how we support them on the ground. I have a question though in regards to vendors, because I know that there might be some tenants who could offer some of their services. Is there an opportunity for tenants to also become vendors as well?
So through the chair, absolutely. We are, through our social procurement process, working actively to identify tenant vendors and businesses. And so we are very interested, engaged, and open to having tenants participate. I see Raquel Nelson here, so maybe she can speak to a little bit about what we're doing around social procurement to engage tenant businesses.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to inform everyone that we are actively ramping up our engagement processes. So we're in the process of, Hanan and I have been meeting with a number of vendors, including tenant-owned businesses, who we are looking to award various contracts this year.
Does that answer your question, Ziva?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions as it relates to the Lyft program? Benita, sorry?
Just through the chair, congratulations to the team. We're putting the community back in community housing and extending the reach of the hard work that you've all done. So thank you. It's fingers crossed. We're at the inception point. Seem to understand our risks pretty effectively of how to navigate forward, and 2 thumbs up. We look forward to the other updates.
I think it's clear that the board's very supportive of this, and I think you've broadened the reach, so I think it'll have a much better impact on the communities. And, you know, as Benita said, that's what we're here to do. So I think the opportunity is great here, and so I do hope that it works out well, and I thank you for all the effort that went into it, because it's been paused for a while, and so I think that this is a great step forward. So can I have a motion to approve? John? Benita? And all in favor?
In favor.
Great. Yeah, I think the board's very supportive of this, so thank you. We'll move to item number 10. And I think all I wanted to do was add the item that relates to onto this list of directives.
Through the chair, I have shared that information with governance staff, so it will appear on the next version. I think at the time that this report was finalized, we were still in discussions if it was going to be a briefing note or how it was going to be recorded, but it will definitely be on the tracker.
Yeah, so it needs to be on the directive list, because the board does have to have action. Can I don't know how this one got missed, we weren't, but if somebody could do a scan to make sure that there isn't anything else that's been left off the directives list,
Yes,
We'd appreciate that.
definitely. And I think my understanding is that at the time, which was a couple of years ago, I don't know that the same, I'm not sure if the same rigor and tracking mechanisms were in place. We now have multiple channels to cross-reference.
Sorry, did you want to add something? Oh, okay. Sorry, everybody was looking at Tara, so I thought. Okay, so if we can just amend, and if you could do a scan for us, that would be great. So are there any other questions as it relates to this? So can I have a motion to approve? Nita, John, perfect, all in favor? Thank you, and thank you, Barbara. So we will move to 10A, and I'm going to turn this over to Dara.
So just a brief explanation of what this matter is about. We are preparing our material for our annual general meeting, which is conducted as part of a regularly scheduled council meeting. That meeting is, the deadline for us to submit our material for that meeting is July 2nd. So this is really the only board meeting opportunity that we have to address an issue that's arisen. When the board approved the process related to the annual general meeting in April of this year, there was a recommendation that was included in the report to the board that recommended that the board, in turn, recommend to City Council that it forward a copy of the board-approved TCHC audited financial statements to the city's audit committee for its information. City staff have advised that the clerk has ruled that that element of the report is, or the report recommendations are redundant, because having made it, the report from the board will go through executive committee. The executive committee will review it, and if they feel it needs to go to audit committee, they'll send it there before it goes to council. But council is supposed to be the ultimate decision maker on it, so it's inconsistent with the city's process that council would then refer to audit committee. So city staff have said, based on the city clerk's ruling, we should delete that recommendation. Because the board had already approved it, we thought we should bring it back to the board so that it's not just staff taking out a recommendation that the board had approved in a prior decision, and provide the board with an opportunity to reconsider the matter, delete the recommendation, approve the revised recommendation, and then we can send it on to council in the form that city staff are advising we should. So that's what this matter is about.
Are there any questions for Dara as it relates to this matter?
No, as chair of TCHC, I'll move the deletion of that motion.
So because it's a reopening, we actually have, the board needs to vote on the decision to reconsider the matter, and a 2/3 majority of directors present is required in order for the matter to be reopened so that we can make that change. So the first step would be, does the board wish to reconsider the matter? Once we're through that, a motion to amend, if the board has approved reconsideration, should be made, and we can proceed in that way.
Do we have 2/3?
Well, 2/3 of those present.
Oh, of those presents. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So can I have a motion to reopen?
I'll move.
Okay, Debbie? Gord, seconder, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, and so then, and then it's a motion to
Motion to amend to delete recommendation 5 from the prior report.
That's the motion. Okay. Benita and Debbie seconder, thank you. All in favor?
And finally, a motion to approve the amended report.
Can I have a motion to approve the amended report? Benita. John, seconder, all in favor?
Favor.
Perfect. So have we taken care of this? Perfect, okay, great. Thank you very much, Dara. And so we're going to move to item number 13, which is our CSU annual report. And we have 3 deputants. I will ask, is Nicole here?
Yes, I am here. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. I am in a busy room. Yes, I'm here.
You're here, okay.
So Ms. Corrado, you have 5 minutes for your deputation.
So what I was going to say is that I noticed one of the things I noticed was that there were several cases of animal cruelty, and including animals dying, that were handled by the security. And what the sad thing is that they were considered to be property crimes, even though we know that animals, even though they're legally property, nobody thinks of them that way. And I think that there's a real need for training in animal welfare for the constables. Plus, there's also a need to have an animal welfare committee that would oversee the animal abuse and prevent this kind of thing. Toronto Community Housing Corporation needs to have an animal committee. They need to have programs in place to help people who may be, facing intimate partner violence, who may be neglecting animals, maybe who need extra help caring for animals. And there were 2 cases of wildlife being killed. There needs to be a partnership, say, with the Toronto Wildlife Centre to educate people on how to humanely manage wildlife, because currently the pest control policies, which I'll be talking about later, are really cruel. So there's a real need for animal welfare education and animal welfare support. That's one of the things I've noticed, that there's a real problem, and it needs to be taken more seriously than it is. It's not a property issue, even though that's what it's legally classed as. These are sentient beings. They're members of people's family. These cats, dogs, whoever, they're members of someone's family. These beings need to be better protected in Toronto community housing. It seems like they're not really doing a good job of protecting animals. What are you doing to address specifically issues of animal welfare and cases of animal cruelty?
Thank you, Ms. Corrado.
Thank you. Is Arnold here? Margulies?
Mr. Margulies?
Oh, there.
Mr. Margulies, we're not able to hear you.
Sir, can you hear us? Sorry, we have another deputant. Do you want to see if you can fix the technical issue, and then we'll come back to you, sir? Okay. My only advice is if you want to sign off and then come back in. Okay, the third deputant is Miguel. And before you start, sir, we do have a deadline for submitting a deputation request. It's 3 p.m. before the meeting, the day before the meeting, and I would ask that you respect that going forward.
So do you hear me now? I'm sorry to ask.
We can hear you now. We're going to come back to you, Mr. Margolis.
Okay, sorry.
You can go ahead. I had to set up my computer.
Okay. Mr. Margulies, you can go ahead. Miguel has to set up his computer.
Okay, so basically, yeah, on the item 13, at CSU annual report, as a reminder, I reported to the board in April that my unit was fumigated from the above unit 1010 and continuously every night. So through this experience, I found that while community safety unit generally does a good job in maintaining safety in the buildings, there are some deficiencies that need to be addressed. And in particular, when I called reporting that the superintendent is engaged in facilitating this crime by the tenant living in 1010. I was told by the dispatch that the community safety unit does not investigate corporate stuff. This is, if this is true, this practice definitely should be reviewed by the board, because the corporate staff is just ordinary people like tenants, and some of them unfortunately violate law, including criminal law. And for example, on February 16, I was followed and assaulted by the drunk superintendent with a shovel in our building, and the constable arrived and promised to come back to me with results of his investigation. Despite 3 requests, he never contacted me back. So on June 13, one man died in our building, Rosario Guida, who was very active, daily seen in the building, seemingly healthy, and suddenly found dead and almost decomposed. And this caused a lot of movement among tenants in our building, because he was a very noticeable guy. And there was no explanation given. And when I reported to community safety unit that he had ongoing tensions with the superintendent, and even threatening the physical tensions, and or he was contacting everyone in the building, claiming that the super was entering units without notice, including his unit, and without even knocking at the door. He was threatened by this, and suddenly he died. And I reported all this to the community safety unit. Immediately, the Chris Bradley from the safety advisor called me, threatening me with charging me with a crime if I continue to investigate this matter. Even so, I simply reported the facts that were known to to other people in the building, and despite the fact that when I wanted to talk to Chris Bradley, he was not available, never answered my email, and his supervisor, Vanessa Ward, when I requested meeting with her, never answered my emails. So this is not a normal situation when the community safety advisors are refusing to communicate with tenants, because tenants are part of this community, major part. And the purpose of the unit is to ensure safety of tenants and staff. So it's not enough only to talk to staff. It is an obligation of the safety advisor to talk to tenants. And I'm personally asking the management of the unit, Mr. Britton, to ensure that I have a personal meeting with Vanessa Ward. So regarding the building cameras audit, this is an anecdotal situation when, despite the corporate policy preventing staff of looking at the cameras, our staff in the building, the superintendent regularly has access to recorded footage of cameras, including on the weekends. And as a result, he immediately, for example, in my case, was contacting tenants who he's seen me, just meeting on cameras. And the camera audit is mandatory in this case to ensure no unauthorized access. Now, with policy sharing of information between the community safety unit, the staff, and the police, this should be, carefully looked at. Tenants should have access and have the right to correct this information. And generally, only part of the information should be shared, because what happens now, the building staff shares false information with community safety advisor, and in turn, it is shared with the police neighborhood unit, false information. Then the police comes to my unit on my call and says, we have a record that nothing is happening. And they leave the unit. The same thing happens with constables who come to my unit, and when police come, they say the police that nothing is happening according to their records. So the information that is shared must be vetted by the tenancy management supervisor. You cannot rely on the tenancy coordinators to share information with the police. They may lie under the pressure of more senior, like superintendent staff, for example.
Mr. Margalis,
now,
Mr. Margalis, you've got 5 minutes for your deputation. I'm afraid you've used it all up. Can you wrap up your comments?
Is it possible to add 2 minutes?
No.
Hello?
No,
We have a number of deputations today.
I'm afraid not.
This is a very important, actually, this is a very important set of topics.
I
About
appreciate
safety.
that, but can you just wrap it up? Wrap up your comments?
Okay. As I said, you know what? Yes, I'm wrapping it up basically by saying that I need to meet with the community safety supervisor and discuss all these issues because I didn't receive a response from Ms. Bottoni on the audit of cameras and on the what information is shared with the police.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Miguel?
And go? Got to go? All right.
Good to go.
So I'd like to share. Thank you. On the screen, you see me speaking at the Police Services Board with regards to the CSU report back in January 14, 2025, and again this month in June 12, 2025. I want to replay for you an important video that I showed to the board, and any
Hey everyone, let's talk about something important. Peace and quiet, it's something we all deserve, right? Being able to relax at home shouldn't be a luxury, but sometimes noisy neighbors can make it really hard to enjoy our own space. Loud music, barking dogs, late night parties. It can be super frustrating, especially when you feel like you can't prove how bad it is. That's where Noise Nuisance Recorder comes in. This handy gadget helps you gather the proof you need to finally get some peace. It's tough when you tell your neighbor their noise is too loud and they say it's not. It's your word against theirs. That's why this recorder is so helpful. It gives you actual evidence. Think of this noise nuisance recorder as your secret weapon against noise. This little device accurately measures how loud the sound is and even records it. No more just saying, it's too loud. Now you have real data to back you up. And don't worry, it's super easy to use, even if you're not a tech whiz. It has a clear screen that shows you exactly how loud the noise is and a built-in microphone that captures the sound. You can even set it to start recording automatically when the noise gets too loud. Using the noise nuisance recorder is as easy as 1, 2, 3. First, put it in the spot where the noise bothers you most, like your bedroom, if the noise is keeping you up at night. Make sure it's plugged in. Next, you'll need to calibrate it. Don't worry, it comes with a simple tool to help you do that so you get accurate readings. Once that's done, just start the recording. The recorder will keep track of the noise levels, and if things get really loud, use the remote control to record the actual noise. That's your proof. After you're done recording, you can download everything to your computer using the special software that comes with it.
I think we get the sense this is a recording device. I think we get
The
it.
noise-
I don't think we have to listen to the whole.
I'm going to stop there. Yes, this is a video that I showed to the board of the Police Services Board in January 14. And it have relevance because the CSU, by the way, we haven't had the CSU review report yet arrived to this table for discussion. I'm aware of that. So what happened is that we need to break the illusion of the CSU will deal with noises during the nighttime between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Many of us get our sleep gets disturbed between those hours. And every time we call the CSU, because that is recommendation from the community, the tenant services coordinator, call the CSU. I have a freedom of information request here. I had 165 calls for over 10 months to deal with noises in my unit. I have lost hearing. That's why I said you need to speak loud, because I have lost hearing. My friends, you really want to improve, you want to be more proactive and modernize your CSU, you have two choices. Two choices. Either you equip your CSU officers accordingly with new technologies to listen to noises that occurs intermittently that we are affected by it. I provide to you guys an idea. I don't know if I can post this, but this is one of the devices that can be purchased, and it's about $9,000. I got a cheap alternative. I got these two microphones. One of each of them costs $1,000. This can provide accurate recording. You don't need to be present. You set it up, and it can hear for up to seven days the noises at the inside the unit, which I have experienced. But the problem is, the CSU comes to me and says, Miguel, I don't hear nothing. What are you talking about? Listen, guys, 165 calls to the CSU. What does it tell you? That the system is broken. The system needs revamping. The system needs to be improved using new technologies.
Mr. Villa?
Because at this point in time, it's a waste of my time, my energy, and my health.
Sorry, Mr. Villa, your 5 minutes is up.
And I didn't mean to call you today at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I can't sleep. My life has been affected.
Thank you very much. I actually, is it Berkson? I have a question from a board member who couldn't attend. So can I ask my question as it relates to this item? Nick was wondering if this was the only community safety report.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I have a question of the deputant.
Oh, okay.
Before we do that, we
Yep.
go to questions of the deputant.
Yeah.
Mr. Miguel. Mr. Miguel. When you have noise problems at night and you call the CSU, how quickly do they respond?
It varies depending on the weather conditions. Sometimes they take 2-3 hours. Sometimes they have on training staff, so it can take about half an hour, 30 minutes.
So if they're...
It varies. It's not a standard. It's not a standard.
Sure. So if they're there, if there's a noise coming from your surroundings above you or next door, and they come, let's say, within 30 minutes, are they not hearing the noise as well, or is the noise then stopped for some reason?
Well, the trick is that they hear it through the door, and that's where the limit is. They don't go through in the unit. They're not allowed to go inside the unit. So they don't hear in the bedroom, the noises that I hear, which are intermittent. It can happen every half an hour. It can happen 2 hours. It's not.
Are these radios or music playing or?
I hear banging, I hear hammering, construction type of noises.
And do they ever hear those noises as well or not?
Can you repeat that again?
When they've come to your unit, have they ever heard the noise that you're hearing?
The FOI says that they don't hear anything.
They're not hearing it. So they spend some time with you and then they go away?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And you've made 160 calls in the last 12 months?
10 months.
How long?
10 months.
10 months. And at no time did they ever hear, they just didn't arrive in time to hear what you'd heard?
No, they don't hear because they come after the noise has happened.
Right. Okay.
And then they said, it's difficult to point it out where the noise comes from. So that's what I said. If we have this device, this can be set inside the unit, and it can record the noises.
Just one last question. So does the noise consistently come from the same place, or does it vary where the noise comes from?
It's the same place, my bedroom unit, where I sleep every night.
That's all the questions I did.
Brian, I'm going to ask Nick's question, and then I'll come to you.
Okay.
So Nick was asking if this was the only community safety report that the board receives, and is that the case? Is that this all we?
So through the chair, this is,
Okay, sorry. Is it?
yeah, oh, okay, sorry. Through the chair, this report is the report that we have to turn over to Toronto Police Services, and so we flow it through to the board. There's another item on today's agenda to talk about community safety and staff safety. And obviously, we'll be coming back with an updated community safety strategy once we've formally received the community safety review by the city.
Okay.
So there will be other opportunities for the board to engage with us on community safety.
Okay, so Nick's comment, so if this is all that comes to the board, he wanted to see something with more analytics as opposed to just listing of the events. He wanted to know things like how crimes are trending, violent versus non-violent, what proportion is TPS involved, how concentrated is the criminal activity, and assuming it's concentrated in several key communities, how is that activity trending? And I think Nick says that this is one of his biggest priorities, but I think safety, tenant safety is, I think, everyone at TCHC's high priority.
So through the chair, this report is a bit more formal in structure because this is what we need to report back to the Toronto Police Services
Yeah, and
Board.
I imagine it's a prescribed form.
Correct. However, we have extensive discussions at the Tenant Services Committee. We report quarterly through the Operational Performance Measures report on community safety, but if the board would like to have a more substantial conversation, happy to bring back a more detailed report when we talk about the proposed community safety strategy in the fall.
Okay, and I think that that's what Nick is asking. Obviously, he chairs BIFAC, so he doesn't see the material that goes through tenant services. And maybe just for our own information, the board could receive those reports so that we're also aware.
Through the chair, absolutely. I can take that offline with the team and make sure you have the appropriate information that you require.
Perfect, thank you very much. Brian?
Two questions. One, I wanted to ask Miguel if he actually knows where the noise is coming from, like which unit, or he just doesn't know where it is, but the noise is just bothering him.
Hello. Through the chair, I will respond this question. I have had also involved the Municipal Licenses and the Standards Office to investigate.
No, do you know which unit the noise is coming from, is my question.
Yes, the answer is yes and no. We have an incident where 35 residents signed a petition because they were hearing noises back in July 2023. And it was difficult to pinpoint the location. It was 2 floors below my unit. And because the concrete is so cheap and bad, and the noises travel in different directions. In the case of the ones I'm being affected by, it is more localized. I have had conversations with the residents who have been doing the noises at nighttime, and they acknowledged that they are awake during the night, and that is a lifestyle.
Okay, thank you. My second question is to staff. In terms of a tenant dispute process, do these types of issues go through a process before they come to the board and try to resolve or find a solution to these type of issues?
So through the chair, absolutely. We've engaged extensively with Mr. Avila. We are not at this point able to substantiate the concerns. We are working with Mr. Avila to look at alternative accommodations as well. So you can rest assured there's extensive engagement with Mr. Avila throughout the course of the last several months.
But the other questions that the other tenants have raised, do they first go through have they also gone through a tenant dispute process as well? I mean, before they get to a board? I mean, not that they're not important, but obviously we all hope that they could be resolved before they get to the board.
So through the chair, without getting into the specifics, we have absolutely engaged the appropriate staff in relation to the deputations we heard today.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Vanita?
Thank you, through the chair. I appreciate the clarification from the ops staff on just the formatting of this report being specific to Toronto Police Services. And I certainly echo Director McCrae's comments in terms of meaningful statistics. It is really difficult to be receiving briefing notes without the contextual link in terms of how the activities that we see reported to us really tie back into the statistics. As it relates to the additional training that's covered in this report, I had a couple questions, namely to confirm that in the parameters that are listed on your page 7, our page 115, are we doing that training annually with CSU staff? Or what's the frequency related to how often they need to be trained per internal standards around things like mental health, CABR, human rights, systemic racism, et cetera? And then I noticed in the delivery, we show either we're self-directing in our delivery or using OPCVA, and I'm just wondering if we're leveraging our CPKN, so the Canadian Police Knowledge Network, where we are a member, if we're leveraging any of those training modules as supplements.
Yes, good morning, and through the chair, thank you very much for the question. We have extended our training, so a lot of the training you'll see on listed there is additional because it's been brought in for current and future state. So we will be doing many of those annually. I can confirm which ones and get back to you definitely, but the majority will be annual. In regards to CPKN, CSU is registered for CPKN. All of our members have access. They're all linked to it. There's some courses that come up that on a case-by-case are mandatory, but they're also eligible for other ones. Again, we bought the bulk package because there is significant value in CPKN, and they do use it on a regular basis.
Wonderful. I just note that the earliest deputation made a comment about animal well-being and welfare, and that is a module on CPKN, so hopefully we can leverage some of the resources we're prescribing to.
We will definitely do that. Thank you.
Okay. John, then Marcel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just thank you for the answers yesterday to my email, Mr. Britton. Just a couple of questions. In regard to the numbers, when you refer to 120 sworn-in frontline special constables that you have on hand, did that include the 28 CSU special constables that were approved for reappointment in June?
Through the chair, that includes the 19 that have been sworn in, and there are 9 more to go that are not included in that.
And that will be the 120?
The 120 is the current number that are sworn in frontline special constables. The 9 will be on top of that.
Okay. And then you have 16 more new recruits who will likely come on board in September, you said?
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. That's our class that's fully trained, and because of background checks through the new CSPA, they will not be presented to the Toronto Police Services Board, their names for appointment until we're hoping maybe July, but in reality, it'll be more likely September.
So that'll get you up to about 145, is by my calculation?
Through the chair, that'll be the number of special constables that we have current state, but it is a moment in time because we lose several of the police services every time there's an intake, and we lose between 5 and 6 each intake.
Has there ever been a discussion with TPS about not poaching our people until they've had a certain amount of experience?
Through the chair, we've had discussions about our training standards and about the quality of the work done by our staff. However, in regards to the employment status, we've had no discussions. It's a very competitive field. All police services are hiring, and the mayor recently was quoted the numbers. It was 4 classes of 90 for Toronto Police for the next, I believe, 4 years. So a lot of the people that they're looking for are highly trained and skilled staff like ours.
Right. So we can't say to them, you know, can you at least let us have 2 years with these guys before you you take them away from us? We have kids.
Through the chair, I'm not aware how we can have that conversation now.
So, okay. So you also pointed out that third-party or security guards for hire that cost the board $5.8 million last year.
Through the chair, I just want to be clear, we have three components of security, and your question was about the guards that we're deploying in the field static. So the first area of deployment is static guards, and that's where we place guards in buildings to control the access to and from a building to make sure people are there for the legitimate reasons. We also have fire watch, which there's another budget of, I believe, just around $2 million, but that's solely for purposes of when elevators are down and we legally have to provide guards as per the fire code. And the third is key holder services, where it's a separate budget held by facilities management, where it's for projects where they're doing work in buildings or units and they have to have guards there present. So there are three separate ones, but the answer that was provided to you is solely for the guards that are used in static capacity. And that's 5.8 our budget, yes.
So that expenditure would otherwise go to the hiring of CSU officers, is that correct?
It would definitely go toward, if that money was repurposed for the hiring of special constables, that would definitely eliminate some guards. The concept of guards is they provide a limited service at the front doors, and definitely if it was redeployed to staffing, that would be something that we would definitely be able to hire more staff, of course, yes.
And what kind of I don't know, I presume the board perhaps has heard this before. What kind of feedback do you get from communities that have to make use of security guards rather than our own officers?
Through the chair, I've attended numerous community meetings, and there are a few people that are very happy with the security at the front because they have that feeling of safety. They're there all the time, and they have that perception becomes the reality of safety for them in those situations. But most meetings that we have, it's very clear that many of the people would prefer more special constables because of the expanded capacity and the high performance that they're able to do when they're in the buildings.
Right, okay, thank you. And I'll just end by saying, if board members have not had a ride along, I would highly encourage that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Marcel.
Thank you. I hope I'm not getting a little bit off topic, but just when it comes to the animal cruelty, a lot of times it's also the bylaw officers. Like there's certain policies and things that kind of get in the way from CSU doing their work, and I don't think it's like solely on them. The other thing is, I spent a day with CSU, and it was very, very informative, and I got to see their staff in frontline situation. And when it comes to like health and safety, the safety for the community and safety for staff, I also think that should include the CSU. And I do know that they have a room where they had, like, they were starting to do some get some workout equipment. But I was wondering if this is something that we could look at as far as like giving them added support so that they can, at the end of a shift or at the beginning of the shift, kind of just like get rid of that nervous energy, because a lot of times they're going into environments that are pretty high charged. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask if I can have a motion to receive. Benita? Gord, seconder, all in favor? Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 14. And that was my pull. So first off, I just want to thank the group that collected all this data. And I certainly understand where the money was spent. And most importantly, I realize that the reduction in this current year's spending is not because you're deferring projects. So that was was quite important to me. I do think when it comes to the contract managed buildings, I think the way we handled the work in those buildings could have been handled much more efficiently as a large project and not as demand work. And I also think that, you know, TCHC has to remember, and the AG highlighted for us, the oversight. You know, those managers of those properties were working under our direction. You know, they're not spending their own capital dollars, they're spending TCHC capital dollars. So I think that that's very important, and we have to improve our oversight of our vendors. I still think that this list, Noah, of things that, you know, were put into place is still very reactive. And I would like it to be more proactive. And I hope, like, you're a new set of eyes, and I hope that you'll look at these things and identify what needs to be done and come to BIFAC. Probably is the most appropriate place with, you know, a plan how we're gonna move forward. You know, there were a lot of red flags that should have gone up. We need help with our KPIs. We need help with the budgeting and the tracking and the projecting. So I think that there are some areas that can be improved, and you know, I'm sure you're well aware. And so we would like to hear, you know, what your plans are and the timeline for those plans. So that's it. We're hoping that, you know, when we get the AG report, that we don't get any surprises, that you basically, you know, pulled the curtains back and told us what's going on.
Through the chair, thank you for those comments. I think they're really valuable and they're accurate, and I think the report speaks to that. I think we have a number of initiatives that are happening corporately that we're already seeing the effects of, and we're seeing that in our 2024 spend, and we're seeing it now as we're halfway through the year of 2025. And we're seeing some of the dividends of the triage program and some of the vendor oversight and the training of in-house staff that my colleagues in operations have put into place. We're also seeing better budgeting as we're coming around to the budget, to the 2026 budget. We have a report by a third-party consultant about our capital planning and delivery process that touches on this and what that appropriate split between you know, a reactive demand program and planned capital should be. We have another Auditor General audit happening on the same subject currently.
So is the third-party report, is that coming to the board?
That will be coming to BIFAC in early
Oh, it's going
July.
to BIFAC? Okay.
And there'll be a presentation on that, and it touches on these issues and much more. And I think further and importantly to those broader pieces, like a renewed capital investment plan for this next 10 years. This is really what we're focusing on as a corporation, and looking at those deeper KPI and how to put that together. And some of these things are the building blocks of that we'll see in the coming cycle. You'll see the beginnings of those. But we're already seeing the dividends of the controls that we're putting in. And I think there's another report coming to BIFAC on the reconciliation piece and getting the proper technology around that. So lots of stuff happening towards that.
And I think it feeds into the strategic plan and what KPIs we're using to measure the success of our objectives. And they've got to be better than just our average FCI. And we spent all our money. That just, I know the city praises us for spending the money, but that's not a measure of success, and you got to get value for the money that you spend.
Totally agreed. It's one lens. It's two very blocky kind of pieces of metrics, and we're working on developing a lot of deeper ways of analyzing the work we do and the efficacy of the money we spend. Actually, over the last few weeks, one thing I've noticed is we have a lot of data. We have a lot of stuff kicking around about how we spend this money and how we select projects. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to take you through that weekly report as well last week. So I think it's about just getting some help, putting that in front of the board here and better demonstrating those things and leveraging the good work that people are doing. And it highlights the areas that need improvement that the board has pinpointed very clearly to when we look at that.
Certainly appreciate it. And if there's, changes to Yardy or whatever needs to take place so that you can, we actually see a budget for planned projects as opposed to straight line, all of those things makes a difference. So, as I said in the welcoming, The expectations are high. So, thank you very much. Does anybody have any other questions for Noah as it relates to this? Okay, so can I have a motion to receive the financial reconciliation, the COXX demand capital report? Vanita, thank you. Brian, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to item number 15, and we have a deputation on this. Inez Garcia.
Good morning, my name is Inez Garcia, I'm from Regent Park. The reason why I wanted to bring this regarding about the human rights. TCHC has hosted TCAD meetings in Regent Park regarding about human rights and the language and all that stuff. But I filed my own personal, I filed a human rights complaint to one of your staff. And you guys always encourage tenants to do the right thing of what it needs to be done. Everything is, it looks good when it's in papers, but in reality, it does not work. I filed a complaint against one of your staff. It backlashed on me. I went under investigation. Your staff got away with murder. I was treated like a criminal. And I don't think that's the right way to be treated. As the higher up people that some of you are here don't even know half of the stuff of what tenants go through, what your staff only tells you guys only what is convenient for you guys to know. It would be nice for the higher up people to come and talk to the tenants, find out what's going on. It's not just sitting at your chair and getting information, because you're not getting all the information from the tenants of what's going on and what's happening. And this is why tenants don't file a complaint or talk to you guys, because there's no trust in there. You want to build a relationship, but how do you build a relationship when you're sitting up in your office and not talking to tenants? Yes, you send your staff, but as a higher up people should be going on speaking to tenants of what's really happening, because you're not being told half of the stuff that happens in that community. This is why I'm bringing this up as a human right, because of what happened in my experience. And the reason I know a lot of it, because I sit in a lot of the committees in the community, and I sit in a tenant advisory committee too, but it's just mind-boggling as a tenant, and especially living in Regent Park with so many different languages, and they don't understand a lot of this stuff. It's really sad how we get treated as a tenant, and you guys are not aware of it at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John, sorry, there's a question? I'm sorry.
So, how long, you've been a tenant of Toronto Community Housing for how long?
35 years.
35 years. And is your building generally well-maintained?
Yes.
It is. Is the level of security in the building and in the area or in the building satisfactory?
Could I just respond? Everything in my building, it's fine. It's one of your staff who does the annual report. I could name her if you want to know her name.
No, we don't need to know the name.
Okay,
You can take that up with staff.
That is the person who does the annual report. She treats people you have in the offices, in the hubs. That's another topic. And the hubs. Respect your staff. It's a two-way street.
So
It should be respect your
question-
tenants too.
Sure, I understand. My question is about the safety and security of the building. Do you generally consider your building to be safe and secure?
Yeah, there's no problem with that. Mine has nothing to do with the safe and secure. It's about the human right complaint against one of your staff and how it went along and the stress that has caused me mentally, physically, and emotionally. And your staff is still working there when I'm the one that filed the complaint, and I am the one that got investigated because of your staff.
Okay, so I just wanted to know, sorry, how long did you say you've been in this building?
In this building, I've been there for almost 8 years.
8 years.
It's a new building. I moved in there from the old building. I used to live at 295 Girard Street East. Now I live at 21 Tubman Avenue.
So, and you say it's a new building?
Yes.
So it's fairly well maintained, you say it's fairly secure. Generally speaking, you feel secure there?
Yes, I already said yes. I responded to you already that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Garcia, there's a couple of other questions. Brian, and then Debbie.
Yes, my question was, did this go through a tenant dispute issue before? I'm just finding these types of issues, not finding a solution before they actually get to the board, and why some of these issues have not been dealt with at a staff level. And I guess my question is not so much to the tenant, but to staff in terms of these processes. Do we need to improve our dispute process? Because obviously, in a number of cases, they're not being resolved adequately to the tenant's satisfaction.
They don't tell you.
So through the chair, I'm not at liberty to discuss the specifics of this incident, but there has been follow-up with respect to the concerns related to the staff in question. We certainly do address concerns as they come up to our attention. I think there are concerns that may be not addressed to the satisfaction of the tenant, and I appreciate that that could cause some frustration, and we encourage tenants to engage with us whenever they can. So I think in the instances that you've heard today, there has definitely been follow-up, and we will continue to work with the tenants locally to address their concerns. And I do want to point out that this isn't necessarily a significant sample size for the board. So there are a lot of tenants who we do engage with and de-escalate on a regular basis. So you may not have a sense of the magnitude of how many issues we deal with on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Debbie?
I wanted to thank the deputant for coming forward. My question is for staff. How do we ensure that tenants who bring forward complaints do not feel punished for bringing forward complaints?
So through the chair, I completely echo your comments, Director Douglas. I think it's really important that tenants feel safe to bring forward their concerns. I don't want to get into the specifics of this instance, but I do think it's important that, particularly in the frontline service delivery, that we remind staff what our expectations are. And there is no intention for our staff to be punitive towards tenants. That's inappropriate. So I will certainly follow up again. But we, on several instances, have had conversations with Ms. Garcia as well as with the staff involved. And so we feel like we're continuing to address the concerns raised today.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia raised a good point as well in terms of access to information. How do we ensure that non-English speakers understand what processes are in place for them?
So through the chair, we provide all of our major communications in multiple languages. We do have a mechanism on our letters and our posters where tenants could request a specific communication in respective language. I'm not sure exactly what documents Ms. Garcia is referring to, but I'm happy to follow up with her and get some clarity. But we do provide language translation services as well as interpretation services as requested.
So, for example, once we do have a final human rights policy and procedures document, will that be able to be translated into languages other than English?
Yes, that's correct. I also wanted to add the issue that the deputant has raised is a significant one. It's being addressed. This issue it sounds like it's been addressed at the level of on-site staff and management to whom that staff report. The report that's before the board today is about our tenant human rights complaint process. And
Yes.
that process is available to a tenant who may be dissatisfied with the manner in which a site level issue has been addressed. So Ms. Douglas from my team manages that process. It's a separate process outside of the on-site process that you've described this morning, Ms. Garcia, as to how your complaint got addressed. If you're still not satisfied with the outcome of that process, there's an internal tenant human rights complaint process that we've established that's available for you if you wanted to pursue that. I can't guarantee that you'll be any more satisfied with the result, but it is a process that's available for you that we offer to tenants in order to manage complaints they have that they feel may not have been appropriately addressed at the building level.
All right.
Yes, go
So,
ahead. And then there's a couple more questions for you.
I am grateful to Nadia. Nadia has helped me a lot. If it wasn't for her, this would have not been acknowledged before coming here with my human rights complaint. What you're saying, if I want to continue with the complaint, I do not want to continue. I am fed up to here as a tenant and the way I got treated, and this is why tenants don't complain. I am done. For my own mental health, I am done. I do not want to file no more complaints because of the way I got treated and the way things went about it. But this is why I'm saying you guys want TCHC tenants to do the right way, and I did the right way. And look where I got.
Truly sorry, Ms.
Ziva,
Garcia. Thank you for
yes.
that.
Ziva
Um,
and Brian.
Yeah, so thank you for Ms. Garcia for coming for for her deputation. I just have a question to staff in regards to, because she talked about the rent review process, which I know a lot of tenants are, from my experience, a lot of tenants are a bit confused with that whole process in general, which I know that the staff already knows about that. If a tenant has a challenge or has experienced challenges with the client, is it the client service coordinators, the people who manage their file, can they request a change of client, can they request a change?
No.
For the client service coordinator?
Nope.
I think that's the question. Can they request a change?
It doesn't work.
So through the chair, our tenant service coordinators who process the annual reviews are assigned portfolios, which include specific units and addresses. So we have had instances where a tenant has requested a change, but unless we formally remove the staff from that portfolio, they're typically the ones that oversee that portfolio. I think on an individual basis, we might explore if there's specific individual circumstances, but typically it's portfolio-based.
Okay, Brian? Sorry, Ms. Garcia.
No, I just was
Questions?
going to
Sorry.
suggest that, pardon?
No, go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
No, I just was wondering whether we should refer this issue back to John's committee, the Tenant Services Committee, and look at the process and, if there needs to be some adjustments or changes, that come back. And also Nadia's comment, which we don't have, or at least I am not aware of, in terms of the number of complaints or concerns that tenants raise. And, obviously many of them have been dealt with successfully, and whether that data kind of should be included to Tenant Services Committee. Maybe it is already, but so that we have a better sense of the amount of challenges and the successful resolution of many of them.
So through the chair, we do report quarterly on our complaints data to the Tenant Services Committee, including outcomes, as well as any escalations to the Ombudsman related to tenant complaints. So that is reported regularly to Tenant Services Committee.
Good, thank you.
So, John, you feel you get the, yes? Okay. Are there any other questions for Ms. Garcia? We really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
allowing me
for
to
coming.
come and speak about this. It's just awareness for you guys to have a
Yes.
better understanding of the tenants, that it's not easy. I'm not white, I'm a Latina, but at the end of the day, I still pay taxes. And the way we get treated, it's not the right way. And doing something like this, it takes a lot of courage. It's not easy. And that's why I'm saying to him that I will not do it no more because my experience. And that this is the reason, and I keep on repeating, the reason why.
Okay.
And communications from TCHC, it needs to improve better, the communication. And that's it. Thank you very much.
And I think, you know, based on the feedback, I think you realize that the board takes this very seriously. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. So can I have a motion to receive Q1 quarterly report to the Ombudsman? Benita? Brian? All in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to item number 16. And Mr. Margulies is the deputant. This is Community and Staff Safety at TCHC.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, I can only second Ms. Garcia. Then tenants are even threatened with criminal charges when they report inappropriate conduct of staff, including possibly criminal conduct. So returning to the agenda of item 16, there are a couple of issues which I believe are very important. The investigations are conducted on various levels, not necessarily they start with community safety unit. First is at the building level, then it may go to complex tenancies team, to solutions team, and nowhere where it goes, there is one principal issue that you wouldn't believe. There is no privacy of investigations whatsoever. And I asked Mr. Chunk to address this issue, Chief Development Officer, because I also contacted some of your staff without any reply. The folder that is created for investigations is accessible to the entire team of the corporation. This is shocking, including people who you are complaining about. So there is a process when people are assigned to go visit the units, inspect them, file the reports. Everything is accessible to people who you are complaining about. And as a result, they intercept possible investigators, they indoctrinate them, they remove evidence right before the investigators come to the unit, and then place back the same devices when investigators are done and leave the units. So Mr. Chunk and the members of the board, what you need to do is to create the investigations folder with the permissions for each tenant that only include the assigned investigator and his supervisor, no one else. There should be no access whatsoever to any other staff to investigations folder of every tenant. So please, this is a very serious matter that sabotages the entire, and Nadia was telling about how many requests for transfers you have, how many investigations. This is a direct result of having no privacy. In violation of the privacy law, the investigations folder are open to the entire corporation. Now, the second issue is about the CSU sharing folder. It should be also a separate folder, and the content of the folder where a part of the information is shared should comply with the privacy laws of Ontario and Toronto, and also it must be approved by the tenancy management supervisor, the tenant themselves must have access to this folder because under the privacy law, they have the right to request corrections. And without having access to the folder or sharing folder, they cannot request any corrections. So the staff along the chain of the community advisory personnel and connecting with neighborhood police officers, the staff in the building can defraud the entire chain of law enforcement trying to prevent investigations. This is not appropriate. So please review this process. Who has access to this information? Tenants must have access to this information as well. And you should provide, in compliance with the law, the right to correct this information, share it with law enforcement. Now, as well, I completely agree, including the other members here, that the community safety advisors and the management of the community safety unit should periodically talk to tenants and not only to staff. And especially community safety advisors, where they refuse to respond to tenant requests, and their supervisor, such as Mrs. Ward, also ignore tenant requests for communication. This is inappropriate. You cannot ensure safety of tenants, who is a primary target of your efforts to ensure safety, if you refuse to communicate with tenants. So please, those are, and I absolutely agree with Mr. Smith that there should be a review of the policy. How would you investigate staff? Why the effort to investigate staff is about denial of wrongdoing. Why you never ensure that staff is punished for wrongdoing. Why you threaten tenants and try to retaliate tenants for complaining about stuff. This entire issue should be subject of policies. The policies should be reviewed, and including, by the way, incident investigation policy should be published by the CSU to ensure that constables are in compliance with how they are expected to investigate incidents, including incidents with staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. Miguel.
One second, please. So on page 3 of the report, it says, the CSU also plays a central role in safety and staff safety by investigating incidents involving violence or harassment against staff, tenants, guests, members of the public. Well, there's only one caveat about these investigations. It's the absence of video footage, evidence that can be used to validate those claims of harassment. As I showed you earlier, I've been advocating for body-worn cameras for special constables. For the last 9 years, I've been speaking about the benefits of equipping the CSU officers with body-worn cameras. I mentioned this to the Police Services Board at the last meeting in June of this month, and somehow they agreed to pass to you guys a valid point. But a member of the board says, well, it has to come, that initiative must come from the board when it comes to provide them with a pilot project to equip your CSU officers with body-worn cameras. There are 3 main reasons. Most high-rises of TCHC do not have CCTV cameras on the upper floors. So how do you investigate when you don't have cameras on the upper floors of the high-rises? The only way you can validate those claims is if your officers are equipped with body-worn cameras that can show or tell the story of what transpired during those interactions with members of the public, staff, et cetera, or guests. The other reason is for accountability and transparency of our special constables who are oath officers of the peace. And the last third argument I'm using is Bill number 10, approved by the Ontario government, where it gives the Solicitor General of Ontario unlimited powers. One of them is to equip CSU officers with weapons. I'm talking about guns to our special constables. This is the doing of the Ontario government, and you need to know that. So if the Solicitor General comes to you and says, I want 10 of your officers to be equipped with guns, fantastic. But what about body-worn cameras that they can match the training of the current police officers? Because when they are being equipped with guns, they have to have the body cameras on. So I have received a notice, and I cannot come to the meetings of I cannot come to the hub office. This was given to me in November 2024. The reason is why I posted on social media that I've been using the Gersten Center as a place to sleep for the last 4 times at the Gersten Center. 3 or 4 times I have attended. So I posted on social media about the inefficiency of the hub office to resolve these noise complaints that I mentioned to you guys earlier. Yes. I listened and I comply. I removed the video from YouTube. So I'm still not allowed to go into the hub office. I had to ask my girlfriend to deliver my RGI information or any communication to the hub office. I wonder what is the process, what is the protocol to ensure that this violation is lifted so I can go and resume my visits to the hub office and view that I have complied to remove a video from social media. So that's it. And I don't wish no harm to anyone, especially because they have parents, they have their dads and moms, they have children, and they want to come home safely. I know it's a very difficult job to work on those buildings. I live in Regent Park. I saw my friend Inez here speaking about an important topic. And she said something very valuable today. She says, TCHC expects us, good residents, to do the right thing. But what we got is the opposite. We got a kick in the butt. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
For doing the right things.
We appreciate it. Are there any other comments on item number 16, the community and staff safety at TCHC? John?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to point out something that I thought was quite astounding is that it says that the percentage of citywide shootings occurring on TCHC property has declined from 45% to 14.6% in 2024. So that doesn't just happen by accident, I don't think, right? So that's, really something that's quite noteworthy. I mean, obviously, any shootings are too many and too much. Is there anything in particular that you would point to that to which you would attribute that change?
Yes, through the chair, thank you for the question, Director Campbell. In 2018, the number that you're referring to, the 45.7, there were 147 shootings documented on our property. That number has gone down year over year, and again, as you said, last year was 14%, and I believe the number was in the range of 60. I think what we specifically attributed to is the joint partnership that we have with Toronto Police, with the City of Toronto, and with all of our internal stakeholders through the integrated team meetings that are held in the regions where all the partners come together and discuss the issues. And some people some of the people that are in need get referred to focus tables, some get referred to services as they require them, but it really is a partnership collaboratively that's led to that reduction.
Thank you. And the other statistic that I find is quite astounding is that the CSU managed over 127,000 incoming calls. 74,500 calls were classified as requiring service. That's 200 calls a day. So that means some days it's probably 300 calls a day. Some days maybe it's 100, but it's a huge number. And I mean, do you feel that you're well enough equipped to handle that kind of volume?
Through the chair, Director Campbell, at this point, I feel that we need to get our number appropriately aligned with the needs of the community, and that will be determined through the new deployment committee that we were undertaking, which has site staff, it has different areas of the organization contributing information, as well as, of course, the CSU and our union partners. What we think that will give us is a better deployment model to look at the new version of VRP, which we've been very clear has to be reviewed. That was a program that was started in 2019, obviously to address the violence that we've discussed earlier. But the new deployment model will look at how do we deploy our resources. And I think at that point, once we are able to deploy them when we're staffed accordingly up to the number that we have, that we will be able to say if we need more or if we're appropriate. So I apologize, it's a hard thing to say because we've never been fully staffed to be able to give you a statement on that.
So we heard from the deputant that sometimes the CSU can arrive in 30 minutes, which is pretty good, given that, you know, we're spread fairly thinly, and sometimes it might take a couple of hours. Do you track response times to certain incidents, and do you categorize them? So, for example, according to certain categories of calls, I guess you have categories of calls, do you then track the response times?
Through the chair, Director Campbell, that's a very good question. It's something that we're fully working on. Right now, we're able to track through the systems that we have with our dispatch, that we're able to track how long it takes us to dispatch the call, and we set some KPIs for that. Some of them we didn't meet last year because, again, as you said, the volume and the reductions of staff that we had, as we've discussed earlier. But the one problem we have with the attendance is our technology, in-car technology is limited. We really only have a couple of laptops. We're working on that. It's something we have a very clear and comprehensive plan on, but it is not up with the current standards. So the only way we know when people arrive at a call is when they verbally book off over the radio. And we're working on our staff doing that in a more appropriate manner, but unfortunately some staff don't do it in a timely manner. So to give an accurate number on that is difficult, but we can definitely give numbers on how long it takes for the call to be dispatched to the officers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Did you have a question, Benita?
Through the chair, Alan, just while we still have your focus here, related to the section of this report on the staff supports and training for handling of post-incident trauma, as a board, we receive these briefings pretty consistently, and a consistent message that's often relayed to Sean is just our concern on frontline staff and the resources available to you all to be able to deal with this, because it's irreconcilable at sometimes what it is that the CSU team will walk into. I appreciate the description you provided, but I was hoping you could add a little bit of maybe coloring or awareness on that, given especially the volume of issues we've had of recent.
Yes, through the chair, and thank you again for that question. I think all TCHC management and staff take staff and tenant safety as the highest priority. And what we've done internally to address the staff safety issue is we have had some meetings with our district supervisors and provided some safety tips for them to provide to staff. We've also looked at ways for our staff to be provided with the resources from CSU in a more timely manner through dedicated contact points. Because quite often when a staff member is in need of CSU resources, so are tenants, and usually it's in conjunction. So we've made accessibility to our dispatch center more timely for our frontline staff. We're also looking at safety basically training plans and presentations that we can make. We have one currently that we do for outside partners that we're going to tailor to internal staff, and we're in the works of that right now through our investigative unit.
So through the chair, I'd also like to add that we have recently implemented a peer-to-peer support program for non-CSU staff. So our frontline building superintendents as well as cleaners, CMP1s. We've also looked at putting in place some support systems for our community service coordinators as well as our tenant service coordinators. I will comment that I don't think we are fully meeting the needs yet. I think this is a growth area for us, and we are still actively looking at opportunities to better support frontline staff, particularly those not trained in this area. So CSU has the opportunity to have sort of that infrastructure in place. I think we're still learning and growing specifically with building staff that have to go into buildings post-incident. So that's a work in progress for us.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Just to go back to Nick's comments and John's questions, I think the analytics is important. It's just citing numbers is not meaningful if you don't explain what the numbers mean. And so I would like, and it's a general comment about reporting, I think the analytics are really important. So, I read out Nick's comments, but I would just ask that that be included in the future, so we understand what TCHC is doing and the results that you're getting from what you're doing.
Through the chair, happy to do that. We have a more robust report that we did submit to the Tenant Services Committee, so we can include that as a backgrounder when we come back in the fall and provide updated numbers with some analytics.
Yes, and it goes back to the strat plan and how we measure the progress that we're making, because obviously safety is key, as well as, the maintenance of the buildings. But I think how we measure that and what steps you're taking and whether they're successful is important to report. So can I have a motion to receive the community and staff safety at TCHC report? Thank you, Vanita. Gord, thank you. Seconder, all in favor? Perfect. We'll move on to item number 17. And
Madam Chair, do we have quorum?
I trust everybody's.
I see names, but I don't see cameras.
For the directors who have joined us online and who don't have their cameras on, can you turn your cameras on so that we can see you're present?
I still can.
Okay, Marcel, you're there. It doesn't work, but we know you're there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I am here as well.
Siva.
Yes,
Siva.
I have
Okay, so we do have quorum. I think Debbie had to leave for half an hour, but she'll be back. So we do have quorum, John. Thank you. Yeah, I trust somebody will tell me if we don't. So we'll move on to item number 17. And Miguel, this is the 250 Davenport Revitalization Closeout Report.
So, I spoke on this item last Tenant Services Committee. I spoke a lot of good things about the tenant engagement, the benefits that the community received through community benefits. But there is one particular item that I forgot to talk about. It's about the engineering marvel of TCHC are able to provide tenants with central air conditioner. I couldn't believe it myself. 250 Davenport, as you are aware, may not, is about 50 years old, similar to 220 Oak Street. And it's incredible when I visit 250 Davenport Road. There's an AC control panel on the wall. I took a picture of it. I couldn't take a picture of the 40-inch hole that was being constructed from the top of the building to the bottom. Each unit had a 40-inch hole. And imagine you had to dig those holes, each unit, every floor. And my understanding that this created somehow a stress on the residents because they were not used to having to deal with those high construction noises. And it's on your website. It says right there, 250 Davenport Road, new central air conditioning. Imagine that. So NOAA is here, and we were consulted in 2019 about 220 Oak Street and our tower renewal project. I wonder if that same engineering technology can be done so that our residents can have central air conditioner and build that all the residents, all the other buildings of TCHC and Regent Park have air conditioner, central air conditioner. My building is not gifted with a central air conditioner. So I would like to see that happening. Maybe NOAA can come and visit us on Thursday when we're going to have a presentation about a tower renewal update at 220 Oak. But again, I want to congratulate you because that was an amazing project to do room by room, floor by floor, 40-inch holes. Imagine the magnitude of that project. Well, lastly, I want to say before I go, one thing on the good side of the community safety unit is that the 30-minute call service happens when you give them to the caller your phone number. If you call the CSU dispatch, if you give them your phone number, the CSU officer will call you back. So that is the 30-minute time. When they come in person, it can take 2-3 hours. And the other thing is, the other thing I want to say that because I've been coming to these meetings, they've been watching my YouTube videos, and they treat me with respect because I'm not just a crazy tenant, but I'm a smart tenant who brings ideas to the table, like the body-worn cameras. They have confessed to me, I feel scared being on the upper floor of a building and there is no CCTV cameras. I wish I can have a body-worn camera so I can protect myself, can protect my tenants, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. I was just wondering, in this, are there any questions? I had a couple, okay. I was just wondering if, lessons learned. It talks about, what was provided for the tenants. And clearly there was a number of seniors who weren't interested in work and stuff. I just hope that we gear it to the community. So whatever is being contributed or to assist tenants, it's not a standard, that we actually take the time to find out what is most appealing to the tenants involved.
Chair, thanks for the question. We have Will Mendez here, and I think he's the best person to give us some more details on the job creation, which is sometimes challenging for the seniors in the building, as well as we originally have a $500,000 scholarships. Obviously, it might not work very well as a scholarship for seniors as well, but Will and I actually had a chat.
You never know, lifelong learners.
There's some uptick, but I think Will will be able to tell you a more wholesome story, Will.
Okay.
So through the chair, we've learned a lot of lessons over the last decade in relation to how we form our community economic development programming and revitalization sites. As we've engaged in newer sites, we've understood tenant priorities, understood employment rates and needs of tenants, ranging from the most vulnerable all the way to young people emerging from college and university, and have utilized that information to form the developer agreement that leverages those opportunities. So it's more customized to the needs of the community that's being impacted. So that's one thing. The other is we've also created flexibility in our agreements moving forward. So that way, if the needs of the community change over time, there is some flexibility that can be provided in terms of what benefits are invested in that the community is actually looking for. Because, you know, sometimes those priorities, if it's a long-term partnership or development over the course of 10, 15 years, the priorities of the community may also change. And we've incorporated that as well based on the lessons learned at 250 Davenport. And at 250 Davenport, we actually pivoted as much as possible and worked with the developer to get to secure cash investments to bring in community-based employment programming to enable some of the tenants who were facing barriers to accessing construction trades employment to get employed within the community and receive that type of customized approach to meet people where they were at, as opposed to, here's a job posting, apply for it, okay, too bad, you're not eligible, and just keep it moving forward. So there was a lot of collaboration with the developer partner in that regard, and we're very thankful that they were able to work with us and be flexible in that manner.
Okay. And I appreciate that, and I've raised this before, but when I look at that annual report, the dollars are really small. And I just wish that there would be a way to incentivize developers and just our vendors. You know, we have massive contracts, and it would be, I think it's their responsibility to give back. And I would hope that we would do everything we can to encourage that they do as much as they can. I would also hope that, there was reports, and there's a lot of numbers in the reports, so I'm going to go back to this again, but, if there could be some analytics and discussion about, whether these are full-time jobs, if they're just, somebody's, just working, for a few days during a project, or if they actually develop skills and end up with a full-time job out of the work, or, anyway, I think there's more of a story to be told, and I think that would be very helpful, and I'm glad you're catering these programs to the community. And who, yeah, oh, sorry, Sean, yep.
So to the chair, and just, hearing you talk about encouraging us to make sure that we're getting the best that we can in terms of contributions from our vendors, both internally and on the big development projects that we pursue. I assure you management shares that interest. There's another report on the agenda today around social procurement and how we're trying to 5x that total amount of investment based on comparison to what we've done in the past. But just on the development side of things, I think it's really important to understand, we have just signed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the largest community benefits agreement in Canadian history, right, in terms of social housing. So we certainly are pursuing these and trying to maximize them. It doesn't change the fact that we had to learn our way along the way, and this is one of the older projects and perhaps didn't have as much contribution as we are seeking today. But I assure you today, every project we do, we're breaking records in terms of the amount of community benefits investments that's being made.
Yeah, and I hope that we keep track and make sure that they actually do what they say they're going to do, and that the tenants get full value.
Chair, can I make a comment?
Yeah. Yes.
There's certain analytics that we actually have done about the job creation that was presented previously in the BIFAC report. I would say, we could do better, but just to answer your question, we know exactly 37 jobs was created, and there was actually 6 tenants among the 37 that actually managed to get a long-term employment.
Great.
And we know the distribution of job between construction and skill building. We know the wage, somewhere between minimum wage job to $40 an hour. So we do have some data, but I guess agree with you how we leverage those data that we could do better next time. Refer to Sean's comment, it's one of the earliest revitalization. And I think we'll have a lesson learned here and be able to apply our lesson learned to future revitalizations.
Great, and congratulations. Great. So can I have a motion to receive the 250 Davenport closeout report? Vanita, thank you. Brian, seconder? All in favor? Perfect. Okay, so we will move to item number 19. And we have Nicole Corrado.
Yes. Yes.
Hi. Yes, you have a deputation to make?
Well, yes, I was going to say regarding pest control, it is really sad to see that the methods used are incredibly cruel and harmful and completely useless methods like glue traps, which animals get stuck to either cardboard or plastic, and they chew on their limbs and tear out their fur to try to get out of the glue. And also they use poisons which do not stay in those bait boxes. What happens with the poison is the animals take it out of the bait box, they hide the poison around places because animals stash food, and because it's poisoned food, and the animals then will also carry the poison for up to a week in their bodies, which then they get eaten by other animals. They get eaten by foxes, by skunks, by owls, by all kinds of animals, including cats and dogs, and those animals can get poisoned. So you're actually causing quite a lot of harm, and it does not solve the problem of sealing up the holes. It does not solve the problem of removing attractants. The poison bait is actually around the buildings is actually an attractant. It attracts all kinds of animals from squirrels to raccoons to coyotes to even bears. It causes all kinds of problems. It goes right up the food chain. It's cruel. It's ineffective. It does absolutely nothing. I would recommend changing your pest control policies to working with a humane company that does not kill animals. The organization Rodenticide Free Ontario has a list of companies that could work with you that do not kill the animals. What they do instead is they seal up the holes. They put one-way doors so the animals, including mice, can get out, cannot get back in, and they will remove all the attractants, and they'll actually fix the problem once and for all. It will save you a lot of money. By stopping killing, it will save you a lot of money, and it'll save a lot of lives, and it'll reduce the issue of zoonotic disease, because when people find a mouse in a glue trap or a kill trap, and the mouse is still alive, people will want to rescue the mouse, and they sometimes get bitten and they can get injured. Process. I would suggest also working with the Toronto Wildlife Centre. They have great tips on how to be humane to wildlife. And I was also wondering that the 2 cases of cruelty to wildlife, were those in relation to pest control? So what are you doing to change your pest control policy to something humane and non-lethal that will actually work? Like, will you be willing to work with Rodenticide Free Ontario and Toronto Wildlife Centre to come up with a humane policy for pest control? Can you still hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Ms. Corrado, if you're done your deputation, there may be members of the board who have questions for you or for staff arising out of your comments.
Okay, sure.
Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much for your time. And I will move to the second deputant, Janice.
Hi there, my name is Janice Freund, and I'm a taxpayer in Toronto. As someone who's always been passionate about animals, I feel compelled to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Although I am not a tenant of Toronto Community Housing, I believe it's important to address a serious risk many tenants may be unaware of: the use of rodenticide in rodent management. Whenever complaints of rodents arise, it's common practice for pest control providers. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Pest control providers to place bait boxes around or inside buildings. These boxes are so familiar to us that they often go unnoticed, but they pose a hidden danger. Most people are surprised to learn that these boxes contain highly toxic poisons. While no one should have to live with rodents, there are safer, more effective, and long-lasting alternatives for managing them. Pest control companies may claim that bait boxes are safe, but this is misleading. These boxes are not foolproof. Many animals beyond rodents can and do access them. Worse still, rodents can often drag poison baits out of the boxes, spreading it where family pets, wildlife, or even children can find it. Rodenticide is formulated with flavors like peanut butter, making it attractive to non-target animals. Just recently, 2 dogs in Ottawa were poisoned after encountering bait left outside. My own beloved dog died after a sudden illness, consistent with rodenticide exposure. I know of countless other dogs whose owners have spent thousands of dollars in veterinary fees, only to have lost their pet. In the US, the Poison Hotline receives 12,000 to 15,000 calls a year related to rodenticide ingestion, mostly involving children under the age of 6. Families who live in Toronto housing community with their children, their cats, and their dogs should not be unknowingly exposed to this level of risk. Rodenticide does not offer a humane or sustainable solution. These poisons do not kill instantly. It can take days or even weeks of suffering. During this time, the poisoned but still alive rodents are hunted by their natural predators like owls, hawks, and foxes. These animals and birds consume poisoned rodents and are themselves poisoned. Secondary poisoning is a growing environmental crisis. Wildlife rehabilitators are sounding the alarm, yet little is being done to curb this threat. There are alternative solutions. Wildlife exclusion techniques, for example, can prevent rodents from entering buildings in the first place. These methods offer long-term and often more cost-effective approaches. The Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks supports integrated pest management, recommending rodenticide be used only as a last resort for temporary control because their use has consequences. Yet in practice, this recommendation is ignored. It is irrational to lure rodents to a property with bait, only to poison them. If bait boxes were truly effective, why is their use constant and ongoing? Other housing cooperatives here in Toronto have successfully eliminated rodenticide from their pest control programs. That success could be more widespread. Tenants should not bear the financial or emotional burden if their pet is poisoned. Families deserve to live in a safe, toxin-free environment, especially when there are better solutions available. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the information. Are there any questions as it relates to the pest report? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to receive? Benita, thank you. Gord, seconder, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. And we'll move to the last item, which is item number 20, and it's the 2024 Annual Unit Inspection Report. And I will call upon Kathy Birch.
Yeah, no, I think it's all right. It's not working. Now it's on. Now it's on. Good morning. Finally made it.
I think it's
there.
afternoon now.
Oh yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, for sure. I'm here to talk to you about the annual unit inspections. They've been around for years, and a couple of years ago we did we added accessibility as a pilot and a trial to see how we could upgrade the AUIs and if it would give us any information that we thought would benefit everybody, and as it turns out it does. But we needed to hone the questioning down and get a little bit better grip of it. We know that the city is not only looking for how we can increase the number of accessible units, but what the units actually look like. How accessible are they? Are they partially modified? Are they fully modified? And what that inventory is. Now we're putting accessibility in as a permanent part of the AUIs. We've upgraded the questioning on what we want the supers to ask, taking pictures, and the benefit. That's going to give us a really strong, accurate count of our inventory. And it'll help answer the questions from the city and that we need to know ourselves of what our inventory is and what is out there, and quite honestly, what we've been spending millions of dollars on accessibility on the CAO2 envelope particularly, which is unit modifications. It's gonna help us with the coordinators to match people, because the supers are gonna be taking pictures of the accessibility features. The coordinators won't have to go out to every building. They'll be able to pull up the profile and look at the features. They'll be able to match tenants up faster and better and to their medical needs. It'll help with our emergency response planning, because then we know what's in each building and where people might need assistance. And it'll help us, finally, it'll help us to modify vacant units when they come up vacant, and how we can increase those numbers. These are all important factors to the AUIs. That's a new feature overall, and RPATH is helping with it. It's supporting the accessibility that we need to permeate through this company, and RPATH is helping. I am helping the staff by participating in the training of all of this superintendents, and for all 12 meetings, and we'll get them there. And I've also made myself available to them so that they can call me if we have a unit under construction as well, so that we can get accurate information in case it is under construction, or the FM construction team, Abigail Myers will be answering those questions as well. So I want you to embrace the new AUIs, push it forward, and I'm out of here. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all you do for TCHC. Our next deputant, or I guess our last deputant, is Mr. Margulies.
Yeah, just the deputation is related to the item 19 and 20, the pest control. And I think basically, which is actually done at unit renovations, also at annual unit inspection quite often, and on tenant requests.
We're on the inspections.
Annual unit inspections, yeah, and on tenant requests also. And what I wanted to say, you can save significant funds on endless pest control efforts if you simply follow the basic logic of an ordinary tenant, and like your own logic when you own the house or a condo. So what you do if you face, the invasion from pests? First of all, you check for existence of holes around the pipes that are penetrating the unit vertically through the ceiling or floor, through the walls. And as soon as you find these holes, you seal them. So, and that's exactly how you prevent migration of pests from unit to unit, especially when the treatment is done. And that should be part of the routine at the annual unit inspection as well. And, to check the baseboards for cracks, and to check, open the radiator covers, and to check for existence of holes, and seal these holes in subsequent filing the requests for repairs. So, and you will, save yourself long-term a lot of money on trying to eradicate pests. And the same thing should be done during the unit renovations when the units are vacated. So you do the same thing, including small openings in the drywalls, covering the pipe compartments and the electrical conduit compartments, and you check the holes, seal them in compliance with fire code and the building code. And you will notice that you no longer have such a massive requirements for pest control. So, by the way, talking about the environmental health unit, and I just wanted to note that probably you don't know, they don't have any equipment to basically to perform their duties. Like when I, let's say, report the air contamination in my unit, the environmental specialists come not at the time when contamination occurs, but at the time when it isn't convenient for her. She comes without any type of analyzers whatsoever, and then surprisingly filed a report, which is ungrounded. It doesn't reflect the findings in the unit. So what I suggest, including to Mr. Kanji, who encourages this type of inspections, and to the leadership of this corporation, to look at the, let's say, site like AliExpress, for example, Chinese site, which would offer you high quality air quality analyzers for $1,000 to measure total volatile organic compounds, which your specialist, environmental unit specialist, do in every visit. They try to assess it based on nothing, having no equipment whatsoever. And for such a huge corporation as this housing corporation, which consists of two parts, the seniors part and the common part, such as environmental safety unit, which is a small unit, having 3 T-Walk measurement devices, it's a mandatory thing. They are not expensive and very accurate. So the same thing is true. I agree with the previous gentleman who reported the noise complaints. This is also, by the way, environmental factor, and they were pretty cheap, including like $20 maybe. The noise measuring devices on the same AliExpress that you can buy basically from every constable of the special CSU. And they will be well equipped to measure noise when they are called by tenants. So please pay attention to the equipment that you provide to your specialized centralized units. This is, I think, otherwise they cannot perform their function and false reports that satisfy no one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your input. Are there any other questions as it relates to the annual unit inspection report? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to receive the report? John, Vanita, seconder, all in favor? Thank you. And could I have, if there's no other business? John, Vanita, seconder. Well, with Ziva, we'll let Ziva second it. All in favor? Thank you very much.